The French Baroque style features a more geometric order and measure than the early Baroque, along with being less decorated. Nicolas Poussin and Christopher Wren are two of the most known artists from this century. Poussin was known to be the leading painter of the classical French Baroque style. His goal was clarity of expressionism, which was achieved by disegno in preference to colore. Christopher Wren was one of the most highly acclaimed English architects in history. It is claimed that he was responsible for the rebuilding of 52 churches in England after the Great Fire, one of which is St. Paul's Cathedral.
Poussin used the camera grand technique often, which can be described as setting up a box and recreating the scene with physical objects and then painting it, practically creating a model of his painting. In this painting by Poussin, you can see that the crouching figure is tracing the letters chiseled into the stone, which reads, "Et in Arcadia ego," meaning even in Arcadia I am there. Most art critics agree that the message on the stone has been left by death, and the shepherds are coming to realize that this means even in a blissful paradise like Arcadia there is death and that life is not everlasting. The richly dressed female figure already understands this truth as she looks on sympathetically. She could be an allegorical figure, looking like a figure from the classical past. Her face is in profile, recalling a Roman bust or statue, and her pose is as motionless as a marble sculpture. If you look from left to right, the figures grow in understanding. The two stooping shepherds pointing to the letters help us to focus on the central message of this work, while their knees and elbows balance the painting out.
The Cathedral of St. Paul is set dramatically on Summit Hill overlooking the city at 306 feet tall. The cathedral's architecture was inspired by the churches and cathedrals of France and is characterized by rounded domes and arches, a symmetrical cross floor plan, and clean straight lines. Decorative elements are grouped at certain points around the cathedral, such as the towers, sides, entrances, and dome. The cathedral's most prominent feature is an 120-foot wide dome made of curved steel beams covered with a clay tile surface and overlaid with copper. A copper-clad lantern approximately 30 feet tall sits on the top of the dome. The church's body is made of granite stone from St. Cloud, Minnesota, in the shape of a Greek cross with nearly equal length arms. Twin 150-foot towers flank the main facade. The three front entrances rest under a monumental arch, which also frames a large rose window. The interior of the dome is 96 feet in diameter and 175 feet high. This thing is massive. Warm-colored paint and gold leaf were added during a major dome renovation in the 1950s. The 24 stained glass windows of the angelic choirs, combined with the 8 painted chandelier, bathe the church in light. 4 massive piers support the dome. At the top of each pier is a 25-foot high mosaic, each with an angel representing one of the 4 cardinal virtues: prudence, temperance, fortitude, and justice. At the base of each pier is a 12-foot statue of one of the 4 gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The symbolism here is unmistakable. Just as the piers uphold the cathedral, the Word of God upholds the church. The Cathedral of St. Paul has been made by many hands, from the initial sketches made by Masqueret to the immigrants who contributed to the construction, to the artisans and designers who have carried on the task of embellishing the church during the last 85 years. It is truly a fitting testimony to God and a sacred place where all people can appreciate its magnificence and worship with uplifted hearts.